Welcome to EduCasts, home of EduCasters. Now, before we get too carried away with the pyramid metaphor, we have to address the elephant in the room. Maslow's hierarchy is a model, not a law of physics. It's not always a rigid video game where you have to beat level 1 to unlock level 2. Human beings are messy. We see the starving artist archetype all the time. People who sacrifice food and safety for their art, self-actualization. In schools, we see students from incredibly chaotic, unsafe backgrounds who still manage to excel academically and find solace in their studies. Sometimes school is the escape from the lack of safety at home. The achievement creates a sense of control that they lack elsewhere. Furthermore, there is a cultural bias in Maslow's theory. It's very Western and individualistic. In many cultures, community and belonging, level 3, come before individual safety or physiological needs. The needs of the group outweigh the needs of the individual. So when we teach students from diverse backgrounds, we have to keep in mind that their internal hierarchy might look a little different. Additionally, Maslow himself updated his theory later in life. He added a level above self-actualization called self-transcendence. This is about stepping outside of oneself and helping others. In education, we see this in peer tutoring, mentorship programs, and service learning. When students help each other, they often find a deeper motivation than when they are just helping themselves. The impact of technology, a new variable. We also have to talk about the digital wrench thrown into the gears. Technology has complicated every single level of the pyramid. Physiological, screens are disrupting sleep patterns on a massive scale. Safety, cyberbullying brings the threat of the schoolyard into the bedroom. There is no safe place to hide when the bullies follow you home on Instagram. Belonging, social media creates a warped sense of connection. Students are connected to hundreds of people, but often feel lonelier than ever. The fear of missing out, FOMO, is a constant low-level anxiety hum. Esteem, the comparison trap is deadly. Students are constantly comparing their behind-the-scenes reality with everyone else's highlight reel. It's a recipe for crushing self-worth. Educators have to be digital mentors. We have to teach digital citizenship, not just as a set of rules, but as a way to protect their own mental health hierarchy. We have to teach them to unplug, physiological, to block toxicity, safety, to build real relationships, belonging, and to value their internal worth over likes, esteem. So, how do we take all this theory and actually use it on a Tuesday? It boils down to the mantra, Maslow before Bloom. Bloom's taxonomy is the other big pyramid in education. It deals with cognitive skills, remembering, understanding, applying, analyzing, evaluating, creating. The idea is that you can't get to the top of Bloom's critical thinking, creation, if you haven't secured the bottom of Maslow's. Here's what that looks like in practice. 1. The morning check-in. Don't just dive into the lesson. Take 5 minutes. Do a temperature check. Ask students how they are feeling. Use a scale of 1 to 5 or emojis. If a kid signals they are having a rough day, you know not to call on them for the hardest question on the board. You give them a pass. You check in with them quietly. 2. Snacks and naps. It sounds elementary, but even high schoolers get hangry. Keeping a drawer full of granola bars can solve more behavioral problems than a detention slip ever will. And if a student falls asleep, wake them up gently or let them rest for 10 minutes. Humiliating them won't teach them biology. It will just teach them to hate your class. 3. The greeting. Stand at the door. Greet every student by name. Look them in the eye. That split-second interaction establishes safety and belonging before they even sit down. It says, I see you and you are welcome here. 4. Structure and choice. Give them routine, safety, but also give them voice and choice, esteem, self-actualization. Let them choose between 2 essay prompts. Let them decide if they want to work alone or in a pair. Autonomy builds buy-in. 5. Normalize failure. Talk about your own mistakes. When a student messes up, frame it as a not yet rather than a no. Build a growth mindset culture where struggle is viewed as strength training for the brain. We have to be honest, though. Asking teachers to manage all 5 levels of Maslow's hierarchy for 30 to 150 students is a tall order. In fact, it's arguably impossible for one person. Teachers are already overworked and underpaid. We are asking them to be social workers, therapists, nutritionists, and security guards, all while teaching quadratic equations. This leads to compassion fatigue. Teachers burn out because they are absorbing the trauma of their students. They are trying to fill the holes in the bottom of the pyramid with their own emotional energy. For Maslow's hierarchy to work in schools, it needs to be a systemic approach. It requires administration to prioritize mental health support. It requires counselors who aren't just handling college applications, but are actually doing counseling. It requires funding for meal programs and after-school safety. We cannot put the entire weight of the pyramid on the shoulders of the classroom teacher. However, even within the constraints of the system, the teacher's mindset matters. When we look at a student who is acting out, and we shift our question from "what is wrong with you" to "what do you need," we change the game. We stop punishing the behavior and start addressing the cause. At the end of the day, education is a human endeavor. We aren't programming robots, we are raising people. Maslow's hierarchy of needs serves as a constant reality check. It reminds us that our students are complex, multidimensional beings who bring their whole lives into the classroom. If we ignore the bottom of the pyramid, the top will crumble. We can push for higher test scores until we are blue in the face. But if our students are hungry, scared, lonely, or insecure, we are fighting a losing battle. By embracing the hierarchy, we commit to teaching the whole child. We acknowledge that emotional well-being isn't a distraction from learning. It is the prerequisite for learning. When we build that foundation, when we ensure our schools are places of nourishment, safety, connection, and respect, we don't just get better students. We get happier, healthier, more fully realized human beings. And honestly, isn't that the whole point of education in the first place? We have to keep our eyes on the prize. The goal isn't just to get them to graduation. The goal is to get them to launch, to send them out into the world not just with a diploma, but with the confidence and the capability to build their own pyramids from the ground up. It's a heavy lift, but it's the most important work there is.